Welcome to part 3. My name is Dr. Carl and I am a pediatric emergency medicine doctor. Today we're going to continue to look at eating disorders in kids. We're going to think about how the different types present, various myths, and of course how these terrible conditions impact young people and their families. So there are a range of different types of eating disorders with different names, and we're going to look at a few now. We're going to think about how they present, and by the end of this video, bust some commonly held myths. Look at these images. Do you know what they might represent? That's right. Each one is a distinctive type of eating disorder. For example, 1. Anorexia nervosa, 2. Bulimia nervosa, 3. Binge eating disorder, 4. pica, 5. rumination regurgitation disorder, and 6. ARFID. Do you know what these all mean? Do you know how they present? Do you know the differences? The spider on a plate analogy is sometimes used in eating disorder education to illustrate how different eating disorders can look very different on the surface, but share the same underlying fear and distress. The idea is simple. Imagine a spider sitting on a plate. Different people respond in different ways. One person might avoid the plate entirely. Another might try to control or remove the spider perfectly. Another might panic and act impulsively. Another might freeze, overwhelmed by shame or anxiety. The key teaching point is that the disorders are not fundamentally separate types of people, but rather different coping responses to the same core problem: intense fear, anxiety, and need for control around food, body, and self-worth. So the analogy highlights a unifying difficulty. The eating disorder behaviors differ, but the emotional engine underneath is often shared. Indeed, all eating disorders are pervasive. They are present in the person's life every minute, every second of the day. This can be a deeply distressing experience. They may start behaving in ways that are very unusual for them. They may start lying, they may start hiding food, they may start doing all sorts of things that they know to be wrong and are deeply out of character, yet they are unable to stop. What begins is a constant battle with what am I doing in this moment and how am I going to manage this? Loved ones often try and barter. If you do this, you can have that. However, it's important to understand you are no longer negotiating with a rational person. Deals can become more and more extreme and are hence best avoided. Thoughts can ruminate, fears can embed, lying and collusion can become habitual, and deal-making can become commonplace. In the case of anorexia nervosa, there can be a distorted self-image, a deep fear of weight gain. Limitations on food and drink can result and accompany less obvious behavior such as running instead of walking and excessive exercise to burn calories. In the case of bulimia nervosa, there can be a vicious cycle. Binge eating compensated by behaviors such as diuretic use, laxatives, purging, exercising, secretive time in the bathroom with self-induced vomiting soon after eating. In binge eating disorder, another type of eating disorder, the binges are often themselves very distressing, with food being eaten even when the person is not physically hungry. It is often done alone due to embarrassment, guilt, disgust, and shame, and should be distinguished apart from emotional overeating. Time for another pause and consideration of a young person's perspective. Here we're going to see some myths busted. Again, kindly taken from HAMPSHIRE CAMHS e-learning on eating disorders.
A really common stereotype is that people with eating disorders are very thin and underweight.
In my experience, that is completely not the case. Even from my own journey, there was a period where I was very thin. However, that wasn't me, my whole illness. I was only at that stage for a very short amount of that time. Most of my illness was kind of for at a healthy weight or getting towards a healthy weight. It didn't invalidate the fact that I was still sick, and it didn't mean I wasn't any less deserving of help. I still had anorexia, but just because I wasn't very thin didn't mean I didn't have it anymore.
Yeah, I don't agree with this. I think eating disorders are they're mistaken for being a physical illness when they are definitely very much a mental illness. So it doesn't matter really how you look or how much you weigh. It's more what you're going through in your mind. And I think when people think that, you have to be skinny to have an eating disorder, that only perpetuates your need to be skinny, because if you want people to kind of acknowledge that you're suffering, you feel that you need to be that weight, and it's just not true, because it's definitely all in the mind.
Often a lot of people assume that people with eating disorders don't like food or don't eat.
That's completely not true in my experience. I think there was definitely a time when I found it hard to accept that I liked food, and with my mum, for example, I'd say or even when we were making the meal plan, for instance, and foods would be suggested, I'd be like, no, I hate it, it's disgusting, and that wasn't the case. I just kind of got to the point, and with the eating disorder, it kind of told me that I didn't like those foods to the point I didn't really know what I liked anymore. As I started to recover, I began to explore food again and kind of try food again. And I began to fall in love with it again. It took a while, but through kind of the support I had, it did improve greatly.
Yeah, for me, I'm a massive foodie. I've always loved food, and when I had an eating disorder, I only loved food more. I was obsessed with food. It was all I thought about. All I wanted to do was eat, but I couldn't bring myself to eat. And because I couldn't eat, my need to eat and my absolute obsession over food increased. So yeah, I think you can love food and still have an eating disorder, definitely.
So the next myth is one that's actually really unhelpful and quite dangerous, and that is that only girls can have eating disorders.
Obviously, I'm a girl, but that's really not true. Actually, when I was in hospital, I met a couple of young boys with eating disorders. So that definitely isn't true. Unfortunately, I think there is a greater proportion of women that are kind of seen with eating disorders, whether that's due to kind of the stigma surrounding it and the kind of the ability to kind of access help. I think women and girls are kind of more, I guess, lucky in that way, that they can access that help more easily than boys and men. But the men absolutely do have all kinds of eating disorders and are just as important and complex and severe as women with eating disorders.
Yeah, 100% not true. Like, eating disorders can happen to anyone. There's a stereotype that it has to be, of course, a girl, often young women, often white women, but it can be anyone. Like, it's not always a thing of needing to be a certain weight because to fit into society. It's not always that. Sometimes it's a control thing, and anything can affect you in a way that makes you have an eating disorder, and it doesn't matter who you are, it can affect anyone.
Wow, what a result.
Yeah, well, we've shown conviction, and it was an unbelievable finish.
Alice?
It was never going to be easy, but I liked what I saw tonight. Everyone gave 110%.
But can they do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke?
Well, Peter, we are in Stoke and it is cold. And raining.
Yes, that's right.
Victorian Plumbing.
Parent alert. 3 ways brand new number blocks on BBC iPlayer makes learning more playful for your child.
1.
It's 100% fun.
2.
We've got whole episodes.
3.
There are 0 ads.
I give it 10 out of 10.
Brand new number blocks. Watch only on BBC iPlayer.
Another myth, which is also really unhelpful and really damaging, is that eating disorders are a choice.
They really are not a choice. I didn't wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm going to have anorexia. That's not how it worked. It's quite a gradual process. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. It kind of is a lot of kind of different events and things, or it was for me at least, that kind of influenced my eating disorder and kind of crept up to the point when it was actually a full-blown eating disorder. But still, I didn't choose to kind of have that. At no point did I kind of actively want to. There were definitely things that influenced kind of my eating disorder. Like, I wanted to be thin, for example, and for me, being thin was very safe due to my experiences. For me, it felt like people wouldn't hurt me then. But I didn't choose to kind of starve myself to the excess that I did, because like, I chose the initial steps to start dieting, for instance, and I made the initial choices to kind of cut things out my diet, but I never intended it to go to the extent it did. I never intended and chose to go into hospital, for example, and get that sick. Once anorexia or any eating disorder really gets so entrenched in your mind, it becomes very hard to make any choices, really. It's so overwhelming and powerful that you do lose a complete sense of who you are, and you don't know what you like and who you are as a person anymore. So at that point, any choices you make, well, you can't make any choices. Like, you're not in any fit position to make any kind of choices. Anorexia completely, or any eating disorder, completely runs the show.
Yeah, eating disorders are never a choice. I can't imagine anyone waking up and deciding one day that they'll have an eating disorder. I remember wanting so badly to be normal again and thinking that it wasn't possible, and I compare an eating disorder to a disease or a drug addiction. It's not something you want to have, it's something you rely on and you can't imagine your life without, but it's definitely not something anyone would want for themselves.
Another myth that we often have to dispel is that parents are to blame for a young person developing an eating disorder.
In my experience, I think parents blame themselves a lot. I've met a lot of parents, and my own parents, for instance, put a lot of blame on themselves. They thought it was kind of their own fault, and parents I've met since kind of have similar feelings, but that really is not the case. They are very important, though, in the recovery of an eating disorder. I don't even know if I would be recovered if I didn't have the family and the kind of support I did. So I am very lucky and very grateful to have had them.
I don't think any one person could be blamed for someone developing an eating disorder or any one thing. Eating disorders stem from so much in your life generally that, you know, blaming one person, blaming parents, like blaming upbringing isn't enough. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I grew up in a very loving household with amazing parents, and I could never dream of blaming them for my eating disorder. It's something that's so kind of individual that I don't believe that any one thing or any one person could be the root cause of an eating disorder.
Now that we've looked at the different types of eating disorder and some common features and hopefully broken down some myths, let's think about the impact that they can have. Any eating disorder has the potential to have a profound and devastating impact on a young person. If we think about different domains of a person's life, we can start to understand this. Due to worry about what others may say or think, school attendance can suffer, school trips can be missed, and in-class concentration can be poor, leading to poor academic achievement. At home, it is common for there to be arguments, especially around meal times. Young people may feel not trusted by family. Indeed, they may become very dependent on family to enable their behaviour. Even in their day-to-day activities, they may have less energy as a result of less energy intake. It can feel impossible to do daily routines. Lengthy rituals can be the result of their disorder and subtract from other activities. Preoccupations can lead to solitude and reduced involvement in hobbies and sports that they used to enjoy. When it comes to their physical health, in the short term, they may have low energy, have faints or tummy upsets, have muscular pain, poor dental health, feel breathless, and have irregular periods. In the moderate to long term, these muscular pains can get worse and their hair can thin. And then in the longer term, severe issues like brain atrophy, infertility, osteopenia, nerve damage, amnesia, and even cardiac damage can result. Every element, every domain of a young person's life becomes affected. We've talked already about their leisure activities. They may miss social opportunities. They may miss rites of passage like birthday parties and school events. Indeed, it circles back to impact their emotional health as well. Often there are coexisting mental health difficulties, including self-harm and suicidal ideation. The disease can be caused by or result in low self-esteem and poor body image. And of course, it is often fueled by ongoing feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment. Here we have another analogy. An eating disorder is a little bit like an octopus. It attaches itself to a person, with each of its tentacles stretching out and gripping others, including friends and family, pushing and pulling people around in different directions so that others involved in caring for the young person will indeed have their own experiences, both of the young person and separately of the eating disorder. This is why treatment requires a systemic approach, involving the young person and everyone around them. In doing so, we are trying to release the grip of the disease on all those that have got tied up within it. To conclude this video, we are going to consider the range of caregiver responses to when a child is diagnosed with an eating disorder. For example, some parents may behave like a kangaroo where they wish to shield, protect, or problem solve for their child. Others may be like a rhino, where their behaviour may be fueled by stress and frustration, and conflicts and arguments are common. Others again may be like a dolphin. Here they've found a balance between taking control and containing the young person. A dolphin is able to swim ahead, alongside, and at other times besides their young. Of course, a lot depends on the emotional response. Some may put their head in the sand and be an ostrich, avoid the situation. Others may be overwhelmed by intense and distressing feelings. They may, as a result, feel self-critical. They may feel judged and, like a jellyfish, have defensive responses. And then others again may be like a dog. They may manage to be consistently caring, compassionate and calm, regardless of what is going on. Whilst reactions can vary, in understanding this and working with families going through this is important. It is crucial to look after the young person alongside their family. I realise this is a very challenging topic and personal experiences vary, but I do hope it has been useful. This concludes this section, and next time we will be considering treatment principles, plans and further perspectives. I look forward to seeing you then, and hope you consider subscribing or leaving a like and joining this new channel about small kids and big emergencies. Thank you.